Hey everybody, how's it going? So with the MCU gearing up for new franchises to ideally be launched during Phase 4, or maybe as we get more information about the eventual Phase 5, if it's even called that, a fan favorite is Nova the Human Rocket. Now, most popular Novas are usually Richard Rider for a lot of longtime readers of Marvel Comics. However, a more recent Nova was introduced in the form of Sam Alexander, who was a bit different, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But basically for the Novas, especially Richard Rider's version, he was a teenage human given the powers of Nova by a dying alien. And essentially, if that sounds really familiar, it's because it's a pseudo Green Lantern type origin story. And more recently in 2012, kind of what I said before, another human became Nova in the form of Sam Alexander, but there were slight differences. So while Richard Rider had the attire of what became a standard Nova with the golden helmet and all that, Sam Alexander's helmet instead belonged to a group of Novas called the Supernovas, which were kind of a Black Ops division within the Nova Corps. And because of that, they had black helmets instead of gold helmets, which is, I guess, a very clear way of differentiating between the two. Now, in the 2014 movie Guardians of the Galaxy, the Nova Corps was introduced into the MCU, although it very much so differed from the comic book version. And in the MCU, the Nova Corps is a military force of the Nova Empire, instead of strictly being an intergalactic police force. Now, this lasted presumably until Thanos attacked and decimated Xandar, which was the capital of the Nova Empire, while he was in his pursuit for the various Infinity Stones. And following these actions, it's very possible the Nova Corps could continue as its own entity, considering it wasn't just based in Xandar, it had bases everywhere, prisons all over the galaxy. So it could continue, but instead of being a military force, I guess, of the Nova Empire, it could just be a peacekeeping organization, a more militarized peacekeeping organization, instead trying to maintain order throughout the galaxy in the wake of the presumed chaos created by Thanos' actions. However, how will we potentially get a Nova closer to the comic book counterpart with regards to certain abilities like light speed flight, energy projection, and more? And the answer for this could potentially be found with Captain Marvel, especially as her franchise is only one movie deep, and this allows some flexibility with future movies as to maybe exploring not just the Kree and the Skrull empires, but potentially other alien governments such as the Nova Empire, whether it's behind the scenes kind of in the past like the 90s, early 2000s before the events of Guardians of the Galaxy, or maybe even after, maybe exploring the aftermath of Thanos' decimation of Xandar, so to speak. And actually it's really interesting if you look at Captain Marvel's powers in the MCU, they're very much so like Nova's powers from the comics, more so than even Captain Marvel's own comic book abilities, at least with how they're utilized and portrayed. And this wouldn't be too far-fetched, I think, if Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, did something with her franchise, I guess somewhat overlapping with the Nova Empire, maybe as a backdoor pilot in some ways to a Nova franchise. And I say that because Carol's involvement with different worlds on different worlds as a pseudo peacekeeper was teased during her conversation with Rhodey in Avengers Endgame. So if that was the case, it wouldn't be too far-fetched that maybe she was working in unison in some way, shape, or form on certain planets with members of the Nova Corps, considering the Nova Empire was really just a hegemony of multiple planets across the universe. So it's very unlikely that not even one of those planets that used to be a part of the Nova Empire, Captain Marvel didn't come across in some way, shape, or form during her adventures. Now, because Captain Marvel's powers in the MCU are from an Infinity Stone, specifically the Space Stone, it's also very possible that the Nova Corps will use not only her expertise and maybe some advice on the matter, alongside data and research they've gathered from analyzing the Power Stone, to maybe recreate a similar type of thing in a sense of probably power suits of some sort, but basically as a way to recreate the abilities for a member of the Nova Corps, the type of abilities that Captain Marvel has. So a theory that's been circulating around is that the Nova Corps will receive assistance from Captain Marvel herself in harnessing the energies of something similar to an Infinity Stone in order to tackle new cosmic threats threatening the galaxy. And these threats can include a villainous sect of the Skrulls, which may or may not include a Super Skrull, maybe enhanced Kree that are kind of being manufactured or being trained specifically to fight someone like Captain Marvel, or just any other races that we haven't seen yet in the MCU, whether it is because the cosmic MCU, all things considered, is still rather unexplored, or because a lot of these characters, a lot of these species throughout the galaxy will be introduced later on, just due to the fact that the MCU did not have the Fox characters yet, and now we do have the characters that were owned by Fox. And this would be a route I would actually really like to see, and honestly something I would like to see even more of is the unsurprising potential of the Nova Corps introducing basically the MCU version of the Supernovas as a Black Ops group with powers, instead of them simply just doing that the whole Nova Corps has abilities. And the reason I say that is because it will allow a small group of individuals to have Nova abilities, so to speak, similar to how the Kree Star Force team had certain power-ups for each member, but it wasn't the norm for the whole Kree military. And it would also work well with the pre-established Nova Corps members and structure shown in Guardians of the Galaxy. So if they do go this route, which Nova will they use? My money is either a buddy cop type film, or if they only want one character, they'll probably go Sam Alexander. And the reason for this is because Marvel has made multiple mentions of them wanting to increase their diversity on film with certain characters, things like that. Miss Marvel's been thrown around a lot, Kamala Khan. And Sam Alexander being Latino would probably be a very effortless way to fit with that initiative going forward. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think about Captain Marvel maybe having some input with kind of instituting Nova for a future franchise? What do you guys think of a Nova franchise in general? Leave your comments down below, and we'll see you guys later.